Hello. Who hasn't heard of Temple OS? All right, perfect. Temple OS is an esoteric operating system with some quirks, to put it lightly. But it's a 64-bit operating system, multi-core. Graphically, it runs on 640 by 480 VGA. That's it. You can't configure anything else. 16 colors only. PC speaker audio only, so no drivers for Sound Blaster or MIDI or anything. It was written by a single person, just one person, over the course of 12 years. And really notably, there's no networking, there's no virtual memory or like protected memory or anything, and no protection rings or user modes. This all runs in ring 0, if you know what that means. So it's a little bit unique for like a quote-unquote modern operating system. And here's a screenshot of what it kind of looks like when you first boot it up. It's pretty basic looking. So that one person who wrote Temple OS, his name is Terry Davis. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but super smart person, the sole contributor to Temple OS, and a sufferer of some pretty severe mental illness, namely bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. And he believed that God commanded him to write Temple OS. We're not going to dive into Terry's story tonight. That would take way too long, and it's also like tragic. But I think importantly, as we go on in this talk, we'll be kind of poking fun at some of the quirks of the operating system, but we're not making fun of Terry. I think it's really important to mention that. But anyway, with that, some of the features of Temple OS, it has 3D graphics rendering integrated very strongly into the terminal-based operating system, which is kind of cool. It also comes bundled with a flight simulator, this Holy C compiler, which I'll talk in a little more detail in the next slide. It has a document formatting engine called DolDoc. It has a bunch of games, and it has this God word generator. So I think this is really interesting. So I loaded Temple OS into a virtual machine and just wrote like a Hello Lancaster program. And all you have to do is hit F7, and it generates these so-called God words, which to Terry was literally the word of God. So this shortened, doubted, feverishness, destroyers, blah, 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 those were all, I just hit F7 a bunch of times, and this, according to Terry, is the word of God, so you can make of that what you will. But Holy C is a variant of C or C++, but it's JIT compiled for Temple OS, and it's the shell language, which I think is really interesting and kind of unique, that a C-like language is the shell language. And it supports inline DolDoc. DolDoc is this kind of if you've ever used Mermaid.js or even Markdown, it's kind of like that. And this is going to be a little bit hard to see, but in the lower left here, you can see the games. When I was talking about the 3D rendering, you can see that down there, and Wikipedia quotes this as, a file can have a spinning 3D model of a tank as a comment in source code. So you can have that in Holy C as a comment, which I think is actually really cool, and we should have that in more languages. And on the right, we have this more kind of just general diagramming language, which I think is really cool. So Temple OS's legacy. The last contribution was made in 2018, but I think it left a pretty big mark on the technology community. It's not at all practical. You're not going to choose this operating system for everyday life or work, but it has this kind of cult following, and it's just super interesting that a single person was able to do this. So my closing thoughts are that this is a remarkable achievement, especially considering that the person who wrote this was struggling with some seriously debilitating illness. Also, purposeful doesn't always mean practical. So I just mentioned this isn't a practical operating system, but for the person who wrote it, it has purpose. And I think that's important to remember in general for any project. And I just wanted to say thanks to Terry for making Temple OS. Thank you all.